Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the TCG Scrubs podcast. Everything's a little bit different this week. Colin and I recently went to GP Collinsville, so explain some of the why it's a little different this week. Before we get too into it, I do want to say definitely thank you to all our support from our patrons. If you want to become a patron yourself, visit our website or visit our Patreon at patreon.com/TCGscrubs. The link on our website as well, should you choose to go there. And, I mean, thanks for them for being able to... Sorry, I moved something. Thanks to them for being able to help us get this on so many different platforms and create content on the go like this one, using a cool microphone we have. But, also make sure to visit Happy Little Hug Factory. Link in the description below for them. And, you can pick up some singles, maybe check out their Buylist, and, you know, let go of some cards you don't need so you get some cards you do need. And then, make sure to visit that link so they know we sent you. Now, as usual, I'm joined with by Colin. Colin from Team ARG. Colin, how did ARG do this weekend?
Pretty good. Alex Blandon from Team ARG, he attended there. I forget what his final place was, but he was in the top 8. Yeah. If you visit the Team ARG page, if you remember, we'll put a link in the description below, but the Team ARG page on Facebook, we actually did an after-tournament report that he did, going over his deck, how the tournament went for him, and his thoughts on Sherry as well. Well, actually, that's going to be in this as well. So
yeah, so for those of you who aren't on Facebook, you'll be able to check that out here soon. We'll have that interview come up. So given the short format, given the GP, we had to create a short format podcast, just something that we're able to get on the go because of the time. We usually record Sunday nights, but we were driving back Sunday night. We
got back technically Monday.
Monday right before 4 a.m. And I was absolutely dead after that trip. I was out of it until today.
I went to work 4 hours later, 3 hours later.
Yeah,
like
we were supposed to go to work. We worked together and supposed to get here at the same time. And I was like, no, I can't do it. I'm gonna call out and stay home. But so because of that, we created this kind of short form podcast. This will be a shorter week than usual. For those of you listening on maybe iTunes or Google, there is not really any video to follow up with this. The Alex interview will probably be the only video part of this whole segment. And
so you guys know what to look forward to. The interviews will be interview segments from Alex Blandon, Stephanie Shaw, Rob. What's Rob's last name? I had totally went blank. Haybear, who is the organizer of the USGPs as well as other things for the company. Who else was there?
Sorry, Rob, for forgetting that. Paul Reisman and Jeremy Franklin.
That's right. I don't know why I keep forgetting about Jeremy.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't forget about you, Jeremy.
So we'll be going over all those interviews, but I guess we'll give our thoughts on the GP before we get into that.
Yeah, you want to go first? Go for it.
Okay. I thought it was a lot of fun. We had 120 people.
Yeah, great turnout.
So, yeah, so it reminded me of our first one, which was last year's GP Richardson, which was a similar turnout.
It was about 180.
Was it?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it was that high.
It was. I actually looked at the numbers the other day. I think exact was 176.
At Richardson?
Yeah.
But it was pretty cool, and like after game 3, they started firing off side tournaments, which was really cool. So you could just instantly drop and start doing side tournaments.
And they were filling up, which was cool. Yeah. I know that's something that I think Rob mentions in an interview, right? That he was surprised that they were filling up so quickly.
Yeah, and it was some of the tournament. I didn't realize this till later, but one of the side tournaments was the Stone tournament where you paid like $25 and you instantly got your choice of any of those really cool dual stones that we had seen from that were in other countries and we weren't sure if they were getting here. So you got one of those, and then if you won, you got one of every single dual stone. So
the cool part was you would get the stone no matter what.
Yeah,
it fired off if it didn't, or if you decided to drop, that stone was yours. That was pretty neat. Or you can opt for your money back, but why would you do that at that point, right?
But everything seemed to go pretty smoothly. I ended up not doing as good as I'd hoped. Mainly, it's a combination of I didn't end up not being able to test against a lot of decks, mainly Gil and stuff. So I ended up losing to Gil and a Sherry Mirror. Basically, what happens at these GPs for me, and it was the case here is and I know the moment it happened was game 2. I won game 1, went to game 2, and at the very end we were at time and turns. He won one, I won one, and so we were in turns, and I was on turn 2. So as soon as I passed, it was basically a game because he couldn't kill me. And I had a way to win, and all I had to do was, I was running Sherry, all I had to do was tell a story and then flip, and I would have won, but I flipped and didn't tell the story, and I'm not sure why I forgot that. I'm going to say it's because I was tired from the drive, but I forgot that, and as soon as something like that happens, so we tied that game, I get super over-analytical from that point forward. Usually I'm pretty smooth on running the decks and stuff like that, and after that, and I'm overthinking stuff, and then I tend to misplay once I do that, so I have to, yeah, that ruined me, that misplay, and so I just became super tilted from that point forward.
I just want to acknowledge the part where, well, first of all, stop opening that. I like how that part where you just kind of breeze over, like, oh, I ran Cherry, by the way. Like, I think that's the one thing everybody's waiting to hear. Like,
I'm sure everyone knows already.
Everybody's like, Colin, what are you running? Like when we saw Josh Patton, which was a great story of its own from my interaction with him.
Yeah, I ended up running Sherry because I was going to attempt to top 8, and then if I topped 8, I was going to go to another GP and just run one of my decks. Mm-hmm. Which obviously didn't work out as well. So, but, and we could talk about this later, but if Sherry gets banned, I'm going to at least attempt to maybe go to another GP. I'm not going to make any guarantees, because probably not, but I'm going to try if she gets banned, because I would really love to go into a rogue scenario where we aren't definitive on what might be big and be able to run a rando deck. But basically, yeah, I ran Sherry to try and top 8, but I got tilted way earlier than I thought I was going to get tilted. Yeah.
No, it didn't go for me. Didn't go so well for me either. I ended up running Sherry as well, but we kind of all knew that leading up to this. That's what I was taking into it. I blame mostly on sleep and my ability to deck build the issues I had for the day, because I know you ran kind of a variant of the Aaron Miles list. Meanwhile, I was kind of just going on my own build of her. And it was a green, black, red build, as opposed to like many of the other ones which are white or whatever other various colors they decided to add. I had a build on Lackey that I was using mostly, and then we left for the trip, and I forgot to grab the list. And so when we got to the hotel the night before, I was attempting to rebuild it and just racking my brains, like, what were the ratios, what were all the numbers, and most of the games I didn't have the cards I needed in hand to do what I needed to do. And then in the first couple games, I was just missing opportunities to play cards. Like game 1 was against Illumia. The guy's name was Blake. Blake, if you're listening, what's up? A lot of people telling us they listen to the podcast. But he played a card. I think he played a Rachel to take the cards off the top of my deck. Swung in with the Blazer. Pass turn, flickers Blazer. Looks at my hand. I was like, dude, you had a Severing Winds. Why didn't you cancel that Rachel? And I was like, I'm not paying attention, man. I didn't realize what was happening. I don't know. I blame it on sleep. He's like, no, I get it. But all the games pretty much went exactly like that until I faced Ben from our locals, which he went with us. And I was like, hey, it's Ben, and I won.
What deck was he running, Oscar?
I was going to say it on my own. I was going to say he was the one Pandora player that you guys saw if you saw the ruler breakdown, which all the information is updated on the website. I had worked on that the day I was off from work. But yeah, no, it just didn't go so well. I think I went 1-3-1 in hopes of being paired with you. Just so we can do one game together and just like end it. But we dropped. You dropped to go commentate. I dropped to go eat with Ben because Ben dropped as well. And we went to White Castle, which is it's not that great. It was a lot of hype, I guess, going into it.
Yeah, no, commentating was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed doing that.
Yeah.
I just wish there was more GPs close by so I could be like, you know what, I don't feel like playing. I'm just going to go help Jeremy commentate because I really enjoy doing that. But if you guys caught that tail end, that was... there was some interesting stuff, especially the time spinning which deck and stuff was a lot of fun to watch.
I haven't seen it in action. I mean, I saw it next to me, but I was focusing on my games I was on. But I think I definitely want to watch a video of that and try to build one of those because it looks like it could. It sounds like it could be fun.
I don't know when she said if it was tonight or tomorrow. We're recording this on Tuesday, so I don't know if it's tonight or if it'll be on Wednesday or something like, or when. But Stephanie Shaw said she was going to be doing a live stream of her playing her Time Spanning Witch deck against a Sherry deck, so that'd be a chance for anyone who missed that to see that in action live, at least. Obviously, you can go to Ruler School's channel to rewatch some of that. Right.
But along the trip, we were attempting to do a vlog. It didn't come out the way we do it normal years, most years, most GPs. So yeah, it's going to be kind of out there. So you guys can check it out. This should go up on Wednesday, so the vlog should be probably up Thursday or Friday, and then you guys can check that out.
Yeah.
You get round by round kind of interviews between me and Colin as each round goes by, and then we drop, but don't really follow up that we drop. And it's just like a bunch of footage of the floor, like as the rounds kept going on, and then the very end, like, hey, how'd you do, Colin? Oh, how'd you do? You know, so it's kind of a weird little thing. And then just to drive back home real quick, which we really just filmed us driving out of St. Louis because of the cool stuff. Yeah, the arch. Yeah. We took a wrong turn and got super duper close to the arch, which was pretty neat.
Yeah, no, it was all in all a lot of fun. Definitely probably won't drive next time.
No, yeah, definitely not. I'll opt for that extra couple $100 just to cut 10 hours from that trip and fly in.
Yeah. But it was really cool, especially meeting a lot of you guys viewers and patrons and stuff like that.
So cool. Like I want to get to my favorite interaction in a minute. This will be the last one that I'll mention. But a lot of the games I played, it usually ended with like, by the way, I watch or listen to your podcast. It's awesome. Or thank you for doing it. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And if they didn't, they go, my friend listens to your podcast. He tells me you're a Pokemon player. I was like, oh, people pay attention. I was like, yeah, that's where I kind of came from. I came to Force of Will, though. But yeah.
Yeah, no. We'll have to do... We had talked about doing another live Q&A. We'll have to do that again. But
yeah, we'll figure out the date. And then we'll definitely advertise that.
I try to think through... Oh, yeah, your interaction with Patton.
Right. So, we arrive Friday night, and I check our Discord, which you guys aren't on our Discord. Link in description below. It's pretty fun in there. And Sigma Patton messages saying, hey, when you guys getting there? So, well, GPS is like 11:30. And he went, same here. And then he arrives and says, where's the party at? And I said, it's a sleep party. I'm going to bed. And so the next day we get to the convention center. We're probably around 9:30. And we walk in, and the usual two judges are sitting at that front table handing out the paperwork for you to fill out so you can get submitted into the tournament. And one of the guys is like, hey guys, how's it going? Josh Patton, blah, 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 this and that. And we're like, oh, hey, how's it going? And it doesn't click for me. And we go about, like, I think third round, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, Sigma Patton's supposed to be here. Oh man, I hope I didn't forget him. I give him some of his Patreon rewards that I brought with me. And so I pull my phone out and I message on Discord like, hey, have we met today yet? Like, have we run across each other? And I send it, and then like not even a couple minutes later, I hear Oscar. I look up, and you and him are together, and it was Josh Patton, one of the judges, and he's like, Josh Patton, Sigma Patton, you didn't connect it yet? And I was like, oh crap, I did not realize this. And I was just laughing so hard that I was like, well, that was embarrassing. And that was probably my favorite moment of the whole trip, was that alone.
Yeah, no, that was pretty funny. It was also cool being able to meet, now I'm going to go blank on how to pronounce it, Savanya? Is that her name?
I heard them just calling her Svit, but yeah, from Games and Geek. Her and her husband run the business. Which I didn't expect them to be there. I didn't know there was going to be a vendor at all, because I was used to just the way Dallas GP was. We had no vendor. I assumed no vendor going into this, which if I had known, I would have brought way more cards with me to kind of see if I can trade off.
Well, and also if I had known, I wouldn't have panicked so hard, because I thought I was missing a couple cards for the deck.
Yeah.
And I was panicking. I was able to get them at the last second. But I would have just been like, oh, because they're like, I could have dropped 40 cents to buy those cards and stuff like that. But, yeah, they had a crap ton of singles. I was able to, I'm almost completed with my Faria collection now. Yeah. And they had a lot of cool stuff.
They had Valhalla cards, and that's what I was picking up. Yeah. And I was like, oh, look at that, they have Loki in English. How much is that? And she's like, 140. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. I did my trade-in on Sunday, and then I go, well, how much is that one? It's the knight that flips and attaches all the additions to himself.
Oh, yeah.
And she was like, 200. I was like, what? Like, I'm not getting any Valhalla rulers. I'll just take some Valhalla singles. You have those? She's like, yeah, this binder. I'm like, all right, cool. Got a couple of those from my Epic Stories deck, and then that's about it. It was pretty cool. They had a long line of people trading cards in and picking stuff up.
Yeah, it took a while.
Yeah.
But I just love the atmosphere of having... You had the main event. You had that to buy and sell singles. They had sleeves and coin. And at Caster Chronicles, they had everything there. You had the side events and stuff. So
stream going on. Everything.
Yeah, the streams. It really reminded me of going to Pokemon regionals or states and stuff like that, where that was just a great experience. It was one thing I missed going from Pokemon was going to those things, going there, and you got your goodie bag and play mat. And then they had just a whole section of vendors, and they had sealed events and regular side events and all this different stuff always firing off. So you could drop round one and not even play the tournament, and you still have stuff to do.
Yeah.
And so I like that we're getting close to that. Not quite there, but it's getting close.
And it was cool seeing all the side events firing off day 1 and day 2, which I think Rob was super happy about actually happening. And, God, there's something else I was trying to say that happened. I don't even remember it anymore. But it was pretty cool.
We'll mention on the tail end after the interviews here if we remember. But so we'll
go ahead and get into those.
Yeah. So, and in response, you guys are going to hear some of the questions. So, the main stuff we asked was, what was the main 2 questions?
So it was, what are your thoughts on the meta right now here at this tournament? How the tournament's going? And what are your opinions on Sherry needing an emergency ban?
Yeah, and advice for new players was the second question.
Right, so for people getting into the game.
To give context for the reasoning for that question, so GP Collinsville had 120 players, and of that, 22% ran Sherry. However, Sherry ended up taking 6 out of the 8 spots in top 8. And to put that in the context, 22% ran Sherry and 21% ran Keurig. Yet only one Keurig made it in the top 8. To give you an idea of like percentage of like, my original thought was there might be a large flooding of Sherrys. If 70% of people are running Sherry, then yeah, Sherry's going to take most of the spots in top 8. But this was a smaller percentage and took up a larger, just percentage-wise, is a lot for top 8. And when I was commenting, we were told that some of the people competing for top 8, it sounded like there was anywhere from like 5 to 7 different rulers technically that were close to, if not immediately competing to make it into top 8. And based on top 8, pretty much all of them lost out to Sherry. So with that in mind, and also if you were watching the stream, Jeremy had mentioned that Jeff, based on what would happen at these GPs, they were considering doing the first ever emergency ban, which usually, no matter what, they never ban until a new set comes out, when normal bans come out. So this would be the first ever emergency ban.
The first, because Reflect didn't get banned during a new set. It just got banned.
No, she just got rotated, didn't she?
No, banned.
Was she? She didn't get early rotated?
No.
I'm thinking of something else.
Yeah. You're thinking about Pokemon, probably.
I don't think she got E-banned. I'm pretty sure she was. There was some sort of something it coincided with.
Straight up announcement saying emergency ban. Not saying emergency ban, but just saying she was banned. No new set was coming out. It was in the middle of the season. They just got rid of it.
We'll double check that later.
I'm 100% positive, guys. But how are we going to introduce these? Just like say we're going to do some interviews and then I'll play back to back, or?
Yeah. So the interviews, they'll basically. We'll let them play out for themselves. Oscar will put them together. I'll just say the order that they'll go in. That way you know who's talking when.
Right.
In case you're listening and not watching.
So the order is Alex Blandon's first.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have Stephanie Shaw. Robert.
Yep. Paul.
And Jeremy.
Finish out with Jeremy.
And then those will be in the order how they go.
Yeah, so in case if you're watching, then we'll just have the title at the bottom of who's talking. But
and if you're waiting for video, Alex will be the only one with the video on his interview. And yes, it's if you missed it when we first started, it's the same interview from Facebook, but now you guys can check it out.
Yeah, and like I said, follow the ARG Facebook, because we'll be doing those videos after each tournament that they attend, that we can at least, as well as we'll end up doing articles as well that will let you guys know when. And we'll also be launching a YouTube channel pretty soon here, which will have that as well as other content that I will be creating, hopefully. So, yeah, so we'll jump right into these interviews.
Hey, it's me, Alex Blandon, the greatest. So today I played Sherry, the typical doll variant. For the most part, it went pretty well. I played, I think, 3 Sherry mirrors, a Keurig, like some Umar combo, some Dusk Girl Umar combo. So I played like a good variety of stuff, but for the majority I played Sherry. I think there was some oversight. I got a little too, there's a little too much tunnel vision with our testing. We tested a lot against the mirror, but I don't think we looked at the mirror as well as we could. I think we were just kind of looking at the cards that were good in the moment and not so much cards that had been previously useless. So for example, Jean-Paul is playing Shade and Blazer in his deck. Those 2 cards are insane, especially the Shade. I kind of am a little upset. If I could go back, I would probably play some amount of both or one of those cards. So I felt like at the time I came, our deck was pretty good, but I realized there were some cards that I just kind of looked over, like those. The Raised Owl was a little bit better than I thought, not even for its effect, just because it was an 8-9 beater. There were some cards in our deck that I think are our sideboard that were suboptimal. We put like 2 light stones in the main, and we didn't play any light cards. We just sided. We just wanted more side space because we sided light stones for miscalc for Keurig. And Keurig wasn't as hard. I was super scared of Keurig, and honestly, I had no reason to be. It was a really easy matchup. So I was too scared of Keurig. I gave too much respect to the deck, and that cost us a lot of side space and a little more consistent stone lineup. I think we saw a lot of the Sherry variants we're seeing top. Some of them were out of the ordinary. You have Derek's that was red with the Valentina. I actually played that, and he 2-0'd me. That deck was super good, honestly. And then you have Jean-Paul's with the Blazer and the Shade, which is also insane in the mirror. So we have people who are willing to sacrifice other matchups in order to just beat the mirror, which I think has carried them really far. I do think our deck has like an insane matchup versus Keurig, especially post board, and it has a pretty good Sherry matchup. The Derek got 2-0'd by Keurig, which goes to show that he was willing to sacrifice some of his Keurig matchup in exchange for just having a better Sherry mirror, which really paid off for him in Swiss. It's just unfortunate that he got paired against the one Keurig in Top Cut. So there's a lot of strategy that goes into it. I kind of set our deck up to be for the field more. So right, top 4 still going on right now. I think Jean-Paul is going to win against Jalen, but if I had to guess, it's going to be Sherry versus Sherry in the finals, and I think Jean-Paul is going to get it because his deck is just so geared toward the mirror, and I think that's what he played the most of. So yeah, I think Sherry is probably the best ruler. I think there's a lot of people going out there saying, oh, well, the meta hasn't been developed, or look at the German results, yada, yada, yada. But I really this ruler is just too good, honestly. I think it's like, it comes down to just making your mirror better and still trying to like be able to win against decks like Keurig, and I guess Time Spinning Witch is all right, but I think a lot of these decks lose their value when you know what to do. I think Lumia is an alright deck, to be honest. I think it can have an alright Sherry matchup. The problem is that these decks don't have a good matchup versus the field. So like, if you're in like a field of like half Keurig, half Sherry, and you're playing a Lumia deck, you're probably going to get throttled by the Keurig deck. So even if you do have like a 60-40 versus Sherry or whatever, it's just not worth taking to the GP. Scheherazade just has an incredible win ratio, broad win ratio versus everything. And because of that, I think the deck is too powerful. It's not quite like last set where it was just like, okay, this is like close, like a tier 0.5, tier 0 deck where you just can't beat it with like anything, but it's just matchup across the board is so good, it's hard to play something else. A lot of decks too still suffer to Fair because Fair can just flip on like turn 2 or turn 3, and it's really hard to deal with the pressure from that, especially game 1 when you don't have the last days in. So it's kind of hard to take decks that just can lose to random things, even if Fair isn't popular, even if there's only 3 Fair decks. Look at Stephanie Shaw's deck, for example. She said she had a great win ratio versus Sherry, but then she ended up playing Fair and getting stomped because you just can't beat that deck. And that was my fear with taking a non-Sherry deck here today, was that I might bump into Fairers, or I might bump into some random X deck that just happens to beat me, and Sherry doesn't have to worry about all these random decks because it has so many tools available to it. So I think that played a huge part. That plays a huge part in the success of Sherry's. I said before, I have tons of comments in the US group where I said, I think Sherry is as powerful as before. It's definitely still tier 1, and that if they don't ban Scheherazade, the problem just continues to persist. I think even into the next cluster, it looks incredibly strong, and Scheherazade was clearly a design flaw that they just need to get rid of. So that's about it, though. My matchups were fairly simple. My only loss was Derek with the red Sherry. I played a Keurig guy who just really didn't know what he was doing, and that was my only Keurig matchup. And then I played, I tied round 1 actually with one of the Ogre guys, his name, Thomas Graham, and he was basically just playing a modified version of Aaron's list, so I barely squeaked out. He won game 1 and I barely squeaked out game 2, so that was a tough match for me. And then I just played, I played another Sherry that I just destroyed. I played an IU deck that actually took game 1 off me, started Shackles. If IU gets Shackles, they can definitely beat Scheherazade for sure. IU's another one of those decks that I treat like the boogeyman. I like to side a shit ton versus it. At this event, I ended up siding 2 Lorites and 2 Scarlet's Agony, and he got me game 1, he shackled me. He shackled me again game 2, but I was just able to kind of keep the pressure off with Scarlet's Agonies and Lorites. And then game 3 was actually insane. We're going to time. I have 4 Spirit Stones, and he's swinging to win the game. I have to get my 1 Scarlet's Agony left in deck off the Spirit Stone, and I draw it off the 2nd Spirit Stone. Then to win the game, I have to draw my 1-drop doll or a 2-drop doll off the next 2 Spirit Stones, and on the 2nd Spirit Stone, I actually drew the doll to quick cast because we're in time at the end of turns and just swing and kill them. So I got really lucky there versus the IU match. I really think it's a matchup you have to respect a lot, because if they hit the Shackles, they can just kill you really easy. And then I just played another Sherry, and Dusk Girl OTK. So for the most part, though, it wasn't a bad event. Like I said, the only hard matchups I played were the guy first round and then the red Sherry match. I ended up scooping to my teammate in top 8 because I have the Pate and he doesn't. So I never got to play out top 8, but I'd like to imagine that if it were me playing against John Paul right now, he would probably beat me because his deck is just far superior. So that's about it, though, for my tournament report. I would definitely play Sherry again. I don't even think there's consideration for another deck at this moment in time. Maybe at Nats I'll consider playing something fun, but with a $1,000 prize on the line, it's unlikely.
Okay, so we start with what you played today or yesterday.
Okay, I played a 4-color Time Spinning Witch, a non-red Time Spinning Witch. It's basically a control deck where you just try to get out a Gil Lapis. You run 4 Gil Lapises plus 1 Kigui's Mimi Butterfly that only gets Gil Lapis, and the rest of the deck is just very hard control. So you have 4 Dragon Lord's Breath, you have 3 Final Battles, you have 2 Millennia Bonds, 3 Fairy Spell, 4 Severing Winds, etc. So the rest of the deck is mainly just to get you into a Gil, and then rely on the fact that Gil Lapis is essentially unanswerable in this meta. People have to Final Battle, and if they Final Battle, they have to Final Battle for 22 because he can move up to an 11/11, and then you automatically have a kill on turn 8 with Schrodinger's Observation, or even turn 7 if you get a Deadly Pox into a Schrodinger's Observation. So it's a lot of fun. It has really bad matchups. You're really bad against Fairy, and you're really bad against Tree, and you're somewhat disfavorable against Keurig, because you auto lose game 1 and then you're like kind of 50-50 games 2 and 3. But you auto win Sherry, which is the important thing. So you just, the blue Sherry is a little bit more like towards middle. It's like 60-40 for you, but the white Sherry and the green-black Sherry, you just almost can't lose. A white Sherry gets Burgeoning Despair, but if they try to play it, you just win the cancel war because you have way more will than they do. So.
What are your thoughts on what the current meta is after seeing the top 8 and all that with the Sherry, and your thoughts on if Sherry should be banned or not?
So I've gone back and forth on this. I looked at Ryan's thread this morning. So Ryan Miles posted a thread about Sherry being played by a lot of top players because they want something consistent. And so it's kind of being driven more to top 8 by the top players. I thought about that myself too. I kind of go back and forth on it. I think that Sherry is a problem because Sherry has too wide of a berth of good matchups. So it's no longer unbeatable, which is important. Which, if you think that a deck has to be unbeatable to be banned, then you shouldn't ban it. But the problem is when you go into a tournament, the only deck that you want to bring is Sherry because it's the only deck that's like basically guaranteed to get close to top 8 every time because it has so many good matchups. Versus something like mine where you have enough bad matchups where if you just hit them, you don't make top 8, right? So I think the high proportion in the meta is more due to people wanting that consistency than actually Sherry being way stronger than any other deck. However, I will say that I do think that it probably needs to be banned because it's not going to change. You're always going to probably see these 6 Sherrys in top 8 or more as long as Sherry exists.
Do you think if Sherry's banned, the meta would diversify, or do you think it would gravitate towards a new ruler?
I think it would diversify. So you have so Keurig beats a lot of the meta just by being a really, really good aggro deck. But Time Spinning Witch, not my build's terrible against it, but the standard Time Spinning Witch is pretty good against Keurig. And some of the like Imel decks, stuff like that, are good against Keurig. So even though Keurig has kind of the Sherry thing where if Sherry's banned, it's good against a large majority of the meta, it's much easier for people to say, okay, I'm going to play Time Spinning Witch and just kill Keurig, and then also have somewhat of those like good matchups across the board too. So.
Lastly, what advice would you give to people like just now coming into the game, as far as like you have any advice for people about what they should do, or like deck wise, or just I think of how Oscar wanted this worded. It's Oscar's question. Just advice for new players coming in general.
Well, the first thing I'd say is that the community is really, really awesome. So always ask questions. Almost every competitive player in the game will always answer questions. So if you want help with how to build a deck, you can ask on the US group, you can ask on Reddit, you can even private message most competitive players and they'll give you help with it. Definitely try to keep a local scene going wherever you are. If there's not one, try to start one by just having a group of 2 or 3 friends and just keep meeting at a card shop, and then if you guys are consistent enough, you'll get other people interested in the game and be able to play that way consistently. Also, Untapped is a very good resource. Now that we actually have that kind of online client, you can play pretty much anybody now, and you'll always have a consistent way to actually play games and test and get better.
Awesome. So firstly, as how you thought the GP went overall?
So let's break it down to a couple of different things. So I think attendance-wise, it was very nice. I think 120 is a lot more than what people were expecting. I know I expected 80 to 100. So 120, getting 120. We actually had a little more than 120. So we had some first-round drops. So we had 120 players that played in round 1. So, all in all, it was. I mean, Collinsville is always historically, of course, a very solid location. It's really centrally located. St. Louis is easy to fly into, and it was definitely nice. Higher turnout. It was nice to kind of see the diversity in the deck list. Sadly, of course, Sherry is Sherry, and it took up 6 spots. But there were a lot of decks in contention to break into the top 8 to make it a little bit more diverse. But they lost out the bubble rounds. So. All in all, I would say it was pretty good, but it gives what I feel is it gave us the needed information to move forward with maybe future potential actions against cards like Sherry and everything else.
Do you think that something like Sherry needs more action, or do you think it'll play itself out?
Yeah, I think it's at this point, the data's there. the community wants something more to happen. So it's, you know, at this point, I mean, granted it's all the company at this point, right? But yeah, I think it's kind of like the perfect storm where it's just like, yeah, we did something to it. It's like, not that it's refrain all over again, but I mean, it was kind of mirroring the exact same aspects, right? You have a ruler that came in, was very, very powerful, did a lot of things, mechanically did, you know, a lot of stuff that the other rulers and the clusters didn't do. And so now with Freckner, now you have a Sherry where it's just kind of weird, where it's just like, all right, now we're starting with a 10-card hand basically. My opponent's immediately at a disadvantage, so it's like, and so we changed, you know, they banned some cards, still wasn't good, you know, it still wasn't just like, Reflector we errated it. With Sherry, they banned some cards. Still it's very strong. It's easily tier 1. It's not tier 0. It can be beaten, but it's, you know, still very oppressive. And so, yeah, it's definitely, we'll probably see something happen to it. Maybe. I mean, again, it's all, that'll be on Jeff and the Japanese team and everything else. And I'll send my input after the event, but,
yeah. Sort of a generic thing, but you have any advice for people who might be just now coming into the game, new players, that type of thing?
Go to your locals. So fundamentally, here's the issue, just to kind of be frank and kind of blunt. The issue that we face here in the United States, right, is the company has lost a lot of retailer loyalty, retailer faith in the game, in the company itself, right? And so what happens most of the time with our newer players is they'll go to their local store, and their store has either stopped carrying the product, or they carry the product but the players are just kind of disorganized. So mostly what it boils down to is, like, if you're a new player getting into the game, if you're wanting to play the game, talk to the store owner. The easiest way to talk to your store owner is like, look, I have cash, I want to buy something from you. Order me the product, please. There's not a single store owner in the entire country that you're like, hey, I have cash, I want to order something from you. They won't order it for you, especially if you pre-buy it. So, but on top of that, it's once you do, you get your decks and everything else. Just constantly play the game. You know what I'm saying? It's like, be in the store, constantly play the games. You'll get the attention of other people. The art draws people in, and it's like, oh, what's this game? Now, granted, yes, we do have the, you know, it's like, oh, dead game, but it's not really that. Like, the game's alive. We have a lot of competition, and so we will be getting 120 players this weekend if it was that. But it's mostly just continuously play. I mean, keep it out there, show it, you know, bring it. If you want it at your local shops, you have to make it happen. That's just how it is. Like, most people don't want to put in the work, especially and that work goes across the entire spectrum for all non-Big 3. So basically, if it's not a Big 3 game, you're going to have to put the work in. And that's just basically what it is. And so, but yeah, as far as that, just go to your locals, join the Facebook groups, watch YouTube videos, you know, everything that you can do to get as much information you can to better yourself and better your community and everything else. And that's pretty much it. It's kind of the go-to gold rules. So.
Awesome. Thank you.
Oh, no problem.
All right, guys. Well, I'm here with Paul Reisman, and Paul, I was just curious. Yeah, I quickly talk. I get nervous of this. No, but Paul, we're just wondering, what are your thoughts so far on the tournament we played today, and kind of like the meta and how it's shaping? And would you agree in an emergency ban on Sherry?
So that's gonna be completely straightforward. I love Scheherazade mirrors. So in that regard, I really don't want to see it go, but of course, I try to get the bigger player base. And I think an emergency ban would be good for the health of the game, especially going into states, ARG, like their invited nationals, and GP Denver is also a concern. So I think that's definitely probably the best choice, because Scheherazade is unlike any other ruler we've seen. It just gets 5 additional cards, and that's just not something we want to have in the game right now, I don't think. Even after, especially the last ban list that just came out.
I got you. And so for new players coming into the game who are just now getting interested in it, what starting out advice would you give somebody?
I would probably just say, if you're just starting out, pick up a structure deck. And you know, if you have a friend, pick up a structure deck, or if you want to wait until the next cluster come out, they're actually going to have 2 rulers in those structure decks and to make mini decks. But really, just do a draft with some of your locals people. Go in and see if they have the Peter Pan, Captain Hook decks in your locals, and just try and like learn the game mechanics and try and get into the flavor, because it's a really fun game. It has a lot of really interesting things about it that are really similar to Magic. It has some appeal for Yu-Gi-Oh players as well, but I think you just have to be just kind of willing to try it out and just let yourself have a little bit of fun. If you're just getting in, structure decks are the way to go.
Now, one last little trick question, I guess you can say, a little surprise. What is your response to the players who are like, Sherry's broken, either unban Priscia, as some would say? I mean, like, what's your response to that? Actually, just that.
I just want people to be proactive, right? So like, it's not that. So my bias is, yes, I love Scheherazade, but I love players being able to play what they want. Like, I wanted to play Shayla, couldn't play Shayla because she's not good enough, right? But I'm always trying to be proactive with the game, right? I want to just be someone who constantly puts out positive vibes with the game. Scheherazade is something that we need to look at, but that doesn't mean the rest of the game has to suffer, and it doesn't mean the rest of the game has to be terrible, right? There's more than just the competitive angle to this game, and if you go to any locals and play with anybody there, they'll just play whatever deck they have, whatever deck they want to play, and they're going to have fun with it. And I think we just kind of need to keep that in mind. If you want to go to events, okay, I can understand that if you don't want to play Scheherazade and you don't like it, okay, but just try and be proactive.
Right.
Just follow Jeff's advice, do something proactive in the community, go through the right channels and do the right work, and that'll go a long way.
So speaking of proactive, so people can go check it out, you do stuff on Ruler School channel on YouTube,
so
right?
I do the tournament reports on Jeremy Franklin's Ruler School channel, along with Josh Boersma, wow, and Jason Lindsay, who also do feature matches and stuff like that. So if you want to, just look at some different decks that aren't Scheherazade and you want to just get a flavor for the game, just head over to that channel. We're always doing different decks. I think we're going to try and do some throwback stuff with like Sung Wukong and maybe some Charlotte lists. Maybe in the future we're going to see how that works out. But
that sounds good. We'll put that link in the description below so people can go check it out. And thanks for answering some of our silly questions we had.
That's silly at all. I loved it. It was great.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, now we're here with Jeremy himself, also known as DMO73.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
And Jeremy, I had a couple simple questions. First of all, what's your thoughts so far from the tournament today, the meta, where it's going, and the possibility of maybe an emergency ban on Sherry being a thing?
So going into this event, I knew that Sherry was going to be very, very, very powerful, very strong. I expected her to be about 30% of the field, right around 30 to 40%, with Kirik being close behind. I was pleasantly surprised when I saw the ruler breakdown that she only made up about 22% of the field, with Kirik following right behind it as expected, but then a lot more other stuff that I was really excited about. I saw some really cool time spinning witch stuff. I saw really cool Scarlet lists that had some pretty good matchups in those. They just didn't quite get there, which is unfortunate. Where my heart started to get kind of disheartened, right, kind of heart sank, was when I saw the breakdown of the top 8. So going into the bubble of last round, there was an Imul, a Scarlet, a Shayla, a Gil, lots of other stuff that was on the bubble for a win and in to make it into top 8. So there's very big potential for very, very diverse top 8, which is what I wanted. I think my ideal was like 3 Sherrys, 2 Kiriks, and 3 others.
Yeah.
That was what I kind of wanted to see based on the percentages. What I got to see, however, was 6 Sherrys, a Kirik, and a Gil. And so in seeing a deck that was 22.5% of the field taking 75% of the top 8, that makes me think one of two things. One, that really, even despite the banning of those cards, there's just too much strength there, which I think this event solidly would prove that, as opposed to like the ARG, because there's just biggest numbers and that real representation. It would prove that, or that the best players at this event happened to be on Sherry, and it's so that they're very, very good players, and so they just happened to be using Sherry, but it was really their skills as the players that took them to the top.
Right.
So then it's this balance of like, do we need to ban the card, or do we have to take the strength of the players themselves into account when considering to that breakdown?
Right.
Ultimately, however, Jeff, I know, has said in the past that looking at percentages for numbers, 75% is his breaking point. Like, he doesn't want to see 75%. And that is what we've seen today. We saw 75% of top 8, 75% of top 4, and 100% of finals were Sherry, despite a 22.5% presence. And so I think the fact that there are 3 major events left in the United States that are new frontiers with invites, the fact that the field outside of Sherry is so diversive and really healthy, in my opinion, I think that an emergency ban of Sherry herself would be a really, really smart choice. I think that if the company, not necessarily just from a play perspective and creating the meta, I think that's a good point, but also from a showing that they're listening. Like, the company, a very good move to say, okay, we heard you, we saw the results, we took these actions because ultimately we don't want to try to ban rulers, and then when they're presented with counter evidence after their bans, go, you know what, okay, we tried, now we're going to drop the ban hammer on it. I think that looks really good for the company to say, we wanted to stick to this rule, to this kind of rule of not banning rulers as whenever possible, but we were presented with the evidence, so we're going to do it now. And I think that would be a really good support for the company, especially in how healthy this meta could be if she wasn't there.
Well, thank you for answering the question for us.
For
being on it. It's kind of like a substitution of the podcast. Since we're busy tonight, but so is it ended? We're recording afterwards. I don't know. Is the tournament done?
We are still waiting to see finals. That'll be next.
Okay.
It'll be Bug Sherry on JPK from Germany versus Black Green Sherry. JPK is pretty heavily favored. Bug Sherry is really, really good in the mirror. And JPK really picked that call well and piloted his deck really well through the decks that weren't Sherry to get to a top 8. A top 8 of. He played Sherry in top 8, he played Sherry in top 4, and now he's playing Sherry in finals. So,
awesome.
Really solid call.
Yeah, well, thank you. And,
of course. Thank you, guys.
We did it on Paul's interview, but people can check you out on your channel. We'll have the link in the description below.
Yep. And if they're watching the stream, hopefully.
Yeah, there you go.
So thanks, guys.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed those couple interviews that we did have. Nothing too crazy. It was something that, like I said, struck us last minute to try and do. And maybe we get to go on more GPs, we'll get some more. Definitely a shout out to Rob, Frank, Cody, and all our judges that helped out run a smooth event. It was definitely fun. And we'll see you guys next week with the normal podcast. Later.